Welcome back to Franchise Player, and within the past 2 months or so, I picked up an Xbox 360 again, and with this console now being 20 years old, which is pretty wild to say. Yeah, it came out in '05, so it is 20 years old. I wanted to talk about why I think so many people are going back to the 360, myself included, why I think this is still such an amazing console to play today. We'll go over the nostalgia of the Xbox 360, the library, and a multitude of other things that make this still a fantastic option for gaming. First off, I guess we'll talk about the nostalgia of the 360, and the Xbox 360 was the first console that I played, as a kid where I really felt like it was the future of gaming. From the HD graphics, online play, Xbox Live, if you were on Xbox Live back in the 360 era, you know what I'm talking about. That just felt so next generation. It really felt like a kind of social hub. Like, I know me and all my friends back in middle school at the time were on Xbox Live constantly on MW2, World at War, playing zombies, things like that, Halo, of course. And it was just such a unique time and such a unique console. Obviously, you're really not going to get that same feel playing it today, even though some of the games still have online play. But just that nostalgia of the 360 and the Xbox being such a powerful figure in gaming back then, I think is really cool because Xbox has definitely fallen off substantially since 2013, sadly. So now to kind of go off that nostalgia, let's talk about the library. And the library of the 360 was incredible. Like, a lot of the games still hold up really well. And, this was Xbox in their prime. This was Xbox at their best. This is when the console wars, if you guys remember seeing console war, like hype videos back in the day, the 360 and the PS3 were going at it. And for a while, the 360 was putting quite the beating on the PS3. The PS3 is my favorite console of all time, but yeah, the PS3 was getting beat pretty hard at one point. And, the games were incredible on the 360. Obviously you have ones that everyone knows about, right? You have Gears of War, which Gears of War really was, in my opinion, kind of the 360's breakthrough game and must-have game, in my opinion. Halo 3, probably still my favorite Halo of all time. The campaign on this game, the multiplayer, the Forge mode, they were pumping Halo games out on the 360. It seemed like every year, every couple of years. You have Halo 3 ODST, which I actually beat for the first time when I picked up this 360 recently, and I really enjoyed it. Back in the day, I didn't really give this a shot that I should have given it, just thinking it was kind of a half-baked game with a recycled Halo 3 multiplayer. This is definitely worth it, in my opinion. And it was cool that, Bungie was still making Halo games at that point. Bungie was incredible. You had Halo 4, you had Halo Wars. Halo was really, I would say at its peak as well in the series on the 360. You have games like, the original Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2, games that are still loved and played by so many people. And, it was just a great game to have. I know it was on PC also, but Left 4 Dead to me always felt like truly an Xbox game, even though you could play it on PC. You had Forza Motorsport. This is when Forza was really taking a jab at PlayStation and trying to compete for that sim racer spot. Sim racing up to that point was really owned by Gran Turismo on PlayStation, and I think Forza did a great job at, at least trying to take some of that fan base away. You had some more obscure games, stuff like Ninja Blade, that's an Xbox 360 exclusive. You don't really see a lot of exclusives on Xbox nowadays. There was a handful on the Xbox One, but it was really starting to taper off at that point. The Xbox Series X and Series S, I'm so out of the loop with current gen consoles, I couldn't tell you what, if any, exclusives are on there other than maybe what Starfield. And I think the Indiana Jones game was like a limited exclusive game, and then I think it was going to PlayStation later on. Another thing that I love about the 360, and I guess you could say this is kind of a seventh generation of gaming thing as a whole, but what's cool about picking up a 360 game, popping it in your console, is you'll actually be able to play it when you put that game in, right? If I pick up, hey, let's say I pick up Left 4 Dead and wanting to, pop it in, play it for a bit, check it out, I'm not having to sit there for 20, 30 minutes, maybe even up to an hour like on my PS5 and install a game, do all these updates. You can actually play a game as soon as you want to. So that's what's, I think, really fun about these old school 360 games is, hey, you just put them in and get to playing. At most, I think, on some of the updates that I've had to do on these was like a 2 megabyte update or 4 megabyte update. Nowadays, you're lucky when you pop a game in if you have like an install less than like 50 gigs or an update less than like 20 gigs. So it's really cool going back to this era and just being able to play a game right when you want to play it. And same goes for PS3. So it's kind of a 7th gen thing as a whole, but really cool that you're able to do that on the 360 compared to more modern consoles. Another reason why I thought it would be cool to go back to the 360 is the backwards compatibility. So one thing I'll give Microsoft, I'll give it to Xbox, is they've always been pretty decent about backwards compatibility, and the 360 was awesome. So there's a whole list of what games are backwards compatible on the 360. I'll leave a link to a list of it below. It'll show you pretty much every title, how it runs, if it's compatible, if there's issues with it, what issues it might have, because I'd say most games, like a good chunk of them, run well, but there's some issues on some. And then also too, not every single original Xbox game is backwards compatible, but a pretty good chunk are. Like most of the popular games, most of the bangers are on there, and then some more obscure games too. So first off, one that I want to show off that I've actually played a ton on 360 via backwards compatibility would be NFL 2K5. This is, without a doubt, by most people, the best NFL game of all time, like the best simulation football game ever. It still holds up incredibly well, being over 20 years old. Outside of that, some original Xbox exclusives. Another game would be Crimson Skies. This is a really fun game from what I've heard, where it's aerial combat, flying planes, taking people out. This is backwards compatible on 360. Another classic when Xbox was actually dropping exclusives, it seemed like on a pretty regular basis, was Fable. This was a really popular RPG back in the day. I know people have like mixed opinions, I think, on the third one. I don't know how well that one really did, but I know the first and second one are solid. And I remember seeing just the cover of Fable back in the day at like a GameStop or an EB Games and thinking it looked like such a cool game. And then of course, the original Halo. So if you want the just OG experience, the vanilla experience, you can play Combat Evolved and Halo 2 via backwards compatibility. So you don't need the Anniversary Edition. Backwards compatibility, I know I would say kind of taken for granted nowadays. Like the PS5 plays pretty much every PS4 game. I know the Series X and I think even the Xbox One are pretty decent with backwards compatibility. But back when this came out, guys, you got to realize that backwards compatibility was a big deal. Like the Wii could play GameCube games, the 360 could play a majority of OG Xbox games, and then certain models of the PS3 could play PS2 games. Mind you, every single one can play PS1 games, but was a really cool feature, and I think it's cool that you're really getting access to basically 2 full libraries at once. So I think the Xbox 360 is a huge bargain in that perspective, right? I got this thing for like $70, half price books, and play 360 games and a majority of the original Xbox titles. So I think that right there is a ton of value. And another cool thing, no updates needed on the original Xbox games, no installs, pop them in, play them, you're good to go. Another thing that I think's been really cool about picking up a 360 again is the 360 controller. And back in the day, especially during 7th gen, when that was the current generation of gaming, I think the Xbox 360 controller was really kind of the premier controller. I love the DualShock 3 on PS3, but the triggers on this, back when, FPSs were super, super popular and getting more popular on consoles, this was kind of the superior controller, and I think it's aged super well. It's a comfortable controller. The analog stick placement still makes a ton of sense. The buttons feel nice. LB and RB feel, nice and clicky as well. And I think this controller's really aged well. I know a lot of people aren't as fond of the DualShock 3 with its age and how small it is, and if you have like huge hands, it's probably not that great of a controller. So I think the 360 controller is another thing that I think is worth, picking up a 360 for, almost in that regard too. Like if you're wanting to play some OG Xbox games or go back and play some 360 titles, the 360 controller is super comfortable. I think the price of the Xbox 360 is actually a huge, huge selling point. Mind you, this one I got, it was $70, came with all the cables and the controller. Not like the craziest deal in the world. You could probably get a better deal like on OfferUp or maybe like Facebook Marketplace. But for less than the price of a brand new game nowadays, or about the same price, you can get an Xbox 360 console, which I think is a huge bargain. Pick one of these up for like 50, 60, 70 bucks. Go out there with like $50 and you can get a ton of great games. Not much you can do nowadays, in my opinion, with $100 that would equate to the same value as this. I mean, maybe something like the Wii I guess maybe the PS3, but you know, the $100 to get a console and like a handful of really good games, I think is a fantastic value today. And last but not least, the final thing I wanted to touch on is that the Xbox 360 actually still feels pretty modern. It uses HDMI, so it connects to modern TVs with no issue whatsoever. If you get one of these newer models, I prefer the old Xbox 360. I think the OG looks way cooler, but if you get one of these, has built-in Wi-Fi. I know that's like a crazy feature that is definitely taken for granted for today. If you had one of the original models, you'd need a wireless adapter. But another thing that's cool too is the dashboard still feels pretty modern. It doesn't feel that outdated in my opinion. Obviously, you can still get gamer score. So if you're one of those people wanting to play games, beat games, and get gamer score, you can still do that and it will sync to your profile. So the console definitely still feels modern, even though it is 20 years old. But yeah, I mean, so far I've been pretty happy with buying this Xbox 360. Had a ton of good time so far in playing the games. Like I beat Halo 3 ODST, started up a playthrough of Left 4 Dead, started up a playthrough of Gears of War, played a ton of NFL 2K5 on backwards compatibility, doing a franchise with the Raiders. So really cool to go back to these games. And you know, like I said, the price, the no installs or updates needed is awesome. And these are just great complete games where I think a lot of studios and just Xbox in general was really, you know, putting their foot on the gas and trying to compete and make a name for themselves. And it's kind of sad to see, you know, how far they've fallen and that they've basically just turned into a Game Pass machine, but it is what it is. Yeah, that'll pretty much do it on today's video. Hope you guys liked it. You know, let me know what you think of the 360 or even just the 7th gen as a whole. If you want to see like a 7th generation of game consoles recap that I did a while back, I'll leave a link to that in the description below too. Cool video. I love the 7th gen. I think it's, you know, maybe a little biased of me to say, but it's like, I think the golden era of gaming, because you have that perfect balance of old school and new school with online connectivity. But yeah, as usual, appreciate you guys for watching and we'll catch you soon with another video.